Well, hello, folks. This is Jaime Roger from runningrestaurants.com. We are back with episode 2 of Restaurant Dirt, where we talk about all the things that can go wrong at a restaurant, the lessons you can learn from that, and of course, how to avoid similar mistakes at your restaurant. Episode 1 was really great, and I hope you got a chance to check that out. And we're looking to build off that with the goal to save you time and money and frustrations and tears that go along with it. So let's get into it. Joining me to share some disasters from his previous life in the restaurant business is Roger Bodwin from Restaurant Rockstars. Roger is a former restaurant owner and operator who had wild success with his restaurants. Now at Rockstars, he is an author and speaker and coach and consultant and trainer to restaurant operators all around the world on how to improve their business. So, Roger, welcome, buddy. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, thank you, James, for having me back. This is always a great time.
There he is. Yeah, no, we got into some stuff last time, and I call them doozies because you laid out some stuff that if you did at your business, man, you really got punched in the nose on a couple big things, and we're going to talk about some wowzers again today. And really, it's fun because these are, not fun in the case when you relive them. You're like, oh man, now that stuff happened, but this stuff happens to every restaurant. So if we can talk about some stuff and learn from it, hopefully people around the world and country can say, oh man, they're going to give them a chance to avoid some of these mistakes. So let's get into today's topic, and we're going to talk about some dangerous situations that happen in restaurants that can potentially lead to lawsuits, and you got some stories for us. So you're in the business, you have some really kind of crazy stories. I'm going to let you roll a little bit.
All right. Well, we go into this business obviously with the best of intentions, but not necessarily knowing that it is a very hazardous business in many ways. And the unexpected is always around the next corner. And I remember my second restaurant we were building from scratch. We actually bought land and built a building. And when the concrete guys were pouring the foundation, which would be the first floor slab where all the dining room and the bar tables were going to be, I got this seemingly brilliant idea, a marketing idea. I'm a big fan of what I call hooks, right? So we were in Maine and we had a rustic outdoorsy theme, and the name of the place was the Great Grizzly Bar and Steakhouse. And there was a 13-foot carved with a chainsaw grizzly bear on the front lawn, and everything about it was, going to be a hook and wow factor and all that kind of thing. And I got this idea that I wanted to take some old vintage snowshoes while the concrete was still wet and make these snowshoe tracks coming in the front door of the place in the concrete. And that was a really seemingly good idea at the time until a customer tripped with high heels in one of these snowshoe tracks in the concrete and, hit her head on a table and sued us. So of course, in hindsight now, it would have been a smart thing to do to obviously fill those in with some clear acrylic over the indentations. That would have taken away some of the wow factor. We did that later after the potential lawsuit happened. So that was like the first thing. And then a couple of months later, the theme again was rustic, and we had a lot of stuffed animals that a taxidermist donated these to us. Right. And we had moose and deer and all kinds of things on the walls. And we had this large moose head with huge antlers mounted over a family style table. I think it was a 10 top. And so here's a 10 top, people having a really great time, and there's plates and there's bottles of wine everywhere. And somehow, don't ask me how, I thought this moose was secure. This moose tumbles about 7 feet off the wall and lands right in the middle of their dinner while they're dining. And bottles are breaking and plates are smashing and food is splashing all over people. And it was like, it became this spectacle where, the rest of the diners, once they realized that no one was hit or hurt, the whole place erupts in applause, So of course you go into damage control mode. You got to comp a lot of dinners, give a lot of gift certificates to come back, say a lot of apologies and fall on your sword. Thankfully, that didn't turn into anything. But, I quickly realized at that time, and this goes back so many years, that this is a litigious society and people will sue at the drop of a hat. And there are certain people, unfortunately, that prey on businesses and go in just hoping that they'll get something, and they'll stage an accident. And I've even seen some of that happen. So these were seemingly innocent blunders that I made that, caused some issues for my business. And I quickly realized that, you just got to be diligent. You got to keep your eyes open all the time. And we can get into training your staff to do the same thing as well. But yeah, those are two early mistakes that go back about 18, 20 years ago.
And then the moose makes me go, holy cow! That thing could have just wrecked you. It lands on a kid, lands on
Right.
anybody, takes them out, and yeah, all of a sudden it's all over the newspapers. Hey, new restaurant guy totally screws up and drops a moose on Jimmy and Sally, and you're done.
Right. You can't
And that
make
thing,
that up. But I mean, think of how that really could have gone south had we actually injured someone. And you'd think that this thing weighed, it had to have weighed about 40 or 50 pounds. If that fell on someone's head, I mean, it would have been a serious injury for sure. So we were very fortunate that it just landed on the table and, kind of broke up the plates and glasses, but nothing else happened beyond that. But it just opens your eyes to what can happen out there. If you got decorations on the wall, make sure they're rock solid secure. And that's common sense now, but apparently it happened to us.
it happens. And you remind me of talking about falling on people's heads. You talked about the drink rail upstairs.
Yes,
And
that's another thing. So we built a second floor mezzanine on this place, our second year in business. And we mistakenly didn't have sort of a back rail that prevented, people were playing pool up there. We had pool tables and games and things, and people would put their pints or their drinks on this drink rail that really had no back rail to prevent those drinks from tumbling off the second floor onto the dance floor below. And that happened several times. So a full pint of beer falls over the rail and, now you're talking 10, 11 feet. That could have hit people. They just smashed on the floor. I mean, we fixed that immediately, but 3, 4 drinks fell over the side first before we fixed that problem. I mean, this is common sense stuff, right? But in the heat of let's get this construction done and not lose any downtime, you build it and you see after the fact where the flaws are.
Yeah, man. One of the things I remember talking about with you early on in one of our calls is your staff, but also you. I mean, you're talking about these little details in your business now. One of the takeaways I think from today is look at the small details of your business. These are little things that all of a sudden could have been big deals. But now, walk your parking lot, walk your entrance, walk your floor, sit in all your seats. What can go wrong in all these places? But don't just do it yourself. How do your staff do it? And that's one of the things you really excel at, right? Having your staff kind of take that mentality.
Yeah, it's interesting because, the things I'm talking about happened as I was learning the business. I was brand new to this business. I had no experience getting into it. And I later created all kinds of fail-safe systems that, did a lot of things. It trained my staff. It maximized profits. I put systems in place across the restaurant. But one of the most important things that you're talking about was really developing your staff and training them to think like an owner. Everyone's got a set of eyes. Everyone walks through the front door to enter your restaurant. I had 52 total employees in this 300-seat restaurant, and obviously not every one of them is on the schedule on any given day, but on any given day, we've got anywhere from 20 to 30 people working in this place, and they're all coming through the front door, and we empowered them to see what the customer sees before they see it, fix whatever's broken if they had the capability to do so. If it was something beyond their capability, they'd bring it to my attention or the general manager's attention. And the customer literally saw nothing that was amiss because we had 30 or 40 people every single day looking at this stuff and looking out. And it could be anything from a hazardous situation to dirty windows or a light bulb burned out or a poster that was advertising an event that happened last week and now that's out of date. It's like all that stuff. And we trained them and we recognized and we rewarded their performance in many, many ways. But, there's nothing more important than empowering your staff to see what the customer sees. Because let's face it, if you don't do this, we're talking negative impressions every day in your restaurant. Some of these may prevent your customers from coming back again. So I was really proud of that program. It worked super great, and I recommend everyone do it.
Yeah, I'm just thinking as a customer, you'll sit down in that booth and there'll be some blinds next to you. And you'll look over and the thing will just be coated with dust and you're like, that's disgusting. And it's because nobody with any ownership mentality has sat there to care enough about that spot that probably should have been cleaned, obviously. But as a customer, I'm like, oh man, I mean, I get it, but I'm like, that's not right and that's not good. And you talk about rewarding the folks. And I know one of the things you did that was neat was I'm going to mess up what it's called, but difference dollars or something like that.
Yeah.
Where folks in your business, you catch them doing something right and you reward them. And so then that mentality builds on itself. Talk about that.
Making a difference. Before we get into that, let me go back to what we were talking about just a second ago. not only did we have, 52 people with a set eyes looking at all this stuff, but we actually established, what we called battle zones in the restaurant where certain staff that worked certain sections were responsible for policing that individual area. So they were responsible, make sure every single table in that section does not wobble. I never, ever want to see a bent in half coaster under part of a table. That was a huge pet peeve of mine. I want those table levelers and I want them to be perfect, rock solid every night. I want the condiments to be clean. You go into a place and you open the ketchup and there's like all the ketchup residue around the outside of the bottle. It's like, no, it's like you're in charge of your section. That's all part of your side work, and you will not cash out at the end of the night until that area is policed and it's in great shape. So, that brings us to the difference dollars. I mean, those were the basics of just doing your job. That's what was expected as part of your key results. But we rewarded people for going above and beyond. And, it could be anything from solving a customer's problem. They locked their keys in the car and someone was empowered enough to, get on their cell phone and call the local towing company that would come open their doors. It's like we bent over backwards to help our customer. That would be an example of making a difference. Internally helping a teammate, maybe the busboy's walking across a slippery kitchen floor with a full tray or bucket of dishes, and he slips and smashes everything on the floor. Somebody else jumps in and helps him clean up the mess. That's making a difference, So every week we would recognize 2 people in the restaurant. Before we opened the doors on a Saturday, we'd call, 30 people that were working that night. We'd all gather around in a circle in the kitchen. And then I would get up and talk about what these people did that made a difference. And then I'd hand them a $20 bill and a can of Red Bull. And it was a very simple program called Difference Dollars. And the $20 in the Red Bull, it kind of made their night, but it elevated the team spirit. And, that sense of empowerment. And then it just elevated the whole morale of the team. And it just reinforced what we were trying to achieve, making sure that every customer's experience was amazing so that positive impressions were all that we were putting out. And then all this stuff obviously finds its way to social media and online reviews. And if you didn't do this stuff, all those reviews may be negative reviews. Something happens to a customer. If you don't handle it the right way, look out. I mean, these things can really hurt your business. So your staff are the key, and empowering them is really that competitive advantage.
Yeah, Raj, I scratched down a couple things there. One was $20. So it wasn't like, hey, I've given them $2,000 in a new car or whatnot. It's like, hey, $20. And people actually will get excited about that.
Yes.
It could be movie tickets or something else.
Anything, really. It's a small price to pay, James, for the ultimate benefits that you get. I mean, this is just one small piece of a training system I called Sales Stars. But the end result of Sales Stars, on top of the increased check averages, on top of the amazing guest service experience, is probably the most important thing to any restaurant is lowering turnover. This is a high turnover business. It costs you a ton of money to turn and burn new people all the time if you can't keep them. And this one program, we had I think it was a 91 or a 92% retention rate in a seasonal restaurant that was only open 4 months a year. Everyone had to go out and get new jobs at the end of the season, and 92% of them came back every fall, and it became this real team spirit and what I call this culture of hospitality, family, and fun. And the key word there is family. So the customers felt like family at our place, and they made friends with the staff, and they asked for their favorite staff every time they came in. And then obviously the staff were making friends with the customers, and the staff felt like family, and we treated everyone like, it was all about teamwork and respect. Those 2 words are critical in any restaurant. And lead by example. If you're a manager or an owner, lead by example. Don't be too important to clean a window, bust a table, pick up a mess on the floor. I did it for years and years and years, and that rallied the team. When they see that the owner of the place is bussing tables and working right alongside them in the trenches, then a certain respect comes from that. And I didn't do it to gain respect. I just did it because that was my nature, and it was part of a team. And I was just another person on that team. And the guest was the ultimate beneficiary of that type of service. So I totally recommend that philosophy.
Yeah, you hit a lot there, and lead by example is important. And I asked for our readers for some feedback the other day this week, and I just heard back labor,
Yes.
how to get people.
I'm telling you,
talk about that. Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a future issue, and some of the stuff you just talked about is a key part of that. When you have the right team and they're willing to bend over backwards for you, that's a big part of the equation. But yeah, and I'll go back to the wobble story. We ate last Sunday at a place, and wobble wobble wobble. Oh, sticking napkins under it. The staff person is like, oh, I don't know what to do to fix it, and we're like, all right, whatever, don't worry about it, we'll deal with it. And it kind of it's one of those small things that degrades the experience. And
it does.
One last thing to kind of wrap on this topic, because I wanted to hit this one because it's another wowzer, right? I know you had I think it was a professional sports star in your place, and you had an incident with that dude. Same thing, a small thing you did wrong that really could have cost you. What happened there?
Yeah, we were limited. I mean, we had a very, very large building, but we were over concerned about, every square inch of any restaurant is valuable real estate. And if you've got a really busy place, especially on weekends, you're just trying to maximize your table turns, serve the maximum number of people possible. And we never made space for a coat check. And we were at a winter ski resort. So everyone would, we had lots of coat hooks on beams and all along the walls and on chairs, and people would just put their coats there. But we never had a dedicated coat check that would have prevented any minor thefts from happening. And there was a pinball machine in the corner of the bar that used to stack up with jackets. And yes, we had a professional sports star, very large person, a football player, nationally recognized name that just happened to come in one night to our place. And his jacket happened to be on this pinball machine. And another, shall we say, dishonest person was rifling through the jackets looking to steal a wallet or whatever, picked the wrong jacket to steal, was witnessed by this professional sports star. And then you can obviously sort of see where this is going, but professional sports star punched out the customer right in the middle of the bar in front of everyone, literally opened his face wide up. This guy needed lots of stitches, and we ended up taking him to the hospital. And that could have been a major debacle, especially in the age of camera phones, online reviews, could have been a lawsuit, the whole 9 yards. And the whole thing just sort of went away. Never heard another thing about it. We took him to the hospital. They sewed him up. His friend came and got him, took him home, and, did the best we could. But clearly he was, in the wrong. And there were lots of witnesses that said, yeah, he was rifling through jackets. But still, it was a dangerous situation that could have been prevented with a coat check. And we didn't have one, and that's my fault. Right?
Yeah, absolutely, dude. You could have got wrecked there, as you discussed on it. If that happened last weekend, you are on you're on the news. Like
oh yes,
news,
it
would have been cameraed from like 10 different angles. It would have been everywhere. It would have been
bad press
and Facebook and it would have killed you. So yeah, people. I mean, so anyway, the takeaways for today is look at those things in your business. Have systems for them in place that you can be safe and secure, and you're looking at it with an eye that is fresh from the customer's perspective, looking for those little things that could really, as we're going to go with the theory today, punch you in the face and really make a big difference. So I think that's what we want to have to take away from today. Look for those dangerous situations. You want to avoid lawsuits. Roger talked about it earlier. People are looking for those situations. They are bad for your business. It'll distract you. It'll take money away from your even if you're right, it's going to take money away from your business. So you got to be careful with that stuff. Roger, I'm gonna go ahead and give a few closing thoughts, but I'm gonna load your sales star video because I think that's cool. But give some thoughts.
Yeah, again, I can't emphasize enough that your staff are really your brand builders. They're the cornerstone of your business, and they do so many different things. They don't just serve the public. They don't just sell. They don't just give amazing dining experiences. But it really becomes, more than that. That family culture is so important to reducing turnover, just to create an atmosphere where people feel respected and valued, and recognition and rewards is so important. And I can go on all day talking about how your staff are gold, and they're either a great impression, first and last impression, or they're ruining your business. And I learned that a long time ago. And you know the story about I don't eat the pizza. That's a whole nother story. But I learned a long time ago that what your staff do and say can absolutely sabotage your business if they're not trained and well trained. So it's so important. Training, recognition, and rewards is probably the most important thing you can do in any restaurant.
Yeah, and Roger has a great program called Sales Stars. He produced a good video, so I want to try to load it for folks right now and play that for you to talk a little bit about what he does. Let's see if this loads for us.
Customers seek more than great food and drink. They seek an amazing dining experience. Your front of house team are the absolute cornerstone to this experience, but many hosts, bus staff, and servers have never been effectively trained. I'm Roger. In my 20 years running super profitable and fun restaurants, I created systems to teach the entire team to not only serve, but to sell at the highest level. The Sales Stars training program will help you build a dream team that will bring your customers back again and again. Begin training your staff with Sales Stars today.
Roger there?
I'm here.
Yeah,
Thanks.
the audio didn't play for me. I hope it played into the video feed for the video. I love that video. If not, we'll link to it. I just think it's great. You produce a really cool video for your stuff. But so as we wrap up, I want to give folks a chance to find us on the web. So Running Restaurants is out there at runningrestaurants.com, where you can find a whole bunch of tips. We have over 1,200 articles for restaurants all over the place covering marketing, operations, service, cost of goods sold, Facebook tips, tech tips, all over the place. We've been doing that for almost 20 years now online. So please check us out on the website. We got the Facebook where we put new stuff, and that's at Facebook/Running Restaurants. Also follow us Twitter at Jamie Oikel, Instagram at Jamie Oikel, YouTube/Jamie Oikel, and then relatively new, we're in the iTunes store with the podcast, and I think iTunes or Google Play. Search for Running Restaurants, you'll find the podcast there. So we're in a whole bunch of places. We want to make sure we're delivering content for restaurant operators who are looking for tips and ideas to run their business better and be profitable. That's what we're here for. We've been here for years trying to help folks with those tips. And Roger, much like us, has great content all over the place. Tell them where they can find you, Raj.
Yeah, that's restaurantrockstars.com. We also have a podcast called the Restaurant Rockstars Podcast. We interview industry leaders. We interview chefs, companies that have leading edge technologies, anything that I think will help an operator run a stronger, more profitable business. And then, of course, we do our own content, finance, marketing tips, service training tips, and you can find that on iTunes as well and on the website. And then a variety of systems just to help you, like I say, run stronger, more profitable restaurants.
Yeah, Roger's stuff is awesome. A lot of our members have bought his programs, so I encourage folks to check his stuff out. Absolutely. And we're going to keep going with this series. We're going to poke at some things that folks are doing wrong in the restaurant with the goal of helping them avoid them. So stay tuned, both on the website, subscribe at places like YouTube and the iTunes, so you can see that stuff when it comes out, so you don't miss anything. We covered a lot today, Raj. I appreciate it, man. You did great as always. Thank you, sir.
So fun. Thank you for having me, James. Talk again.
You got it, buddy. All right, we're going to wrap up. This has been fun stuff. Folks, it's been Jamie Oikel from runningrestaurants.com, along with Roger Godwin from restaurantrockstars.com. Thank you so much for listening, and all the best for your restaurant business.